to another episode of the Resurgence Podcast. My name is Scott, and if this is your first time joining us, thank you. This is a podcast that is dedicated to talking about real estate, family, faith, and everything in between. We like to say that it's a podcast where conversations of real estate and faith intersect. And today I am super excited because I am joined by a really good friend of mine, Jacob. Jacob's here joining us today, and we are entering into the time of year where it's spring, getting into summer, and we're really gearing up for first-time home buying. And Jacob bought a house. We were just talking about this. You literally bought a house almost a year to the date.
Yep, we are probably a week and a half, 2 weeks from signing the papers as of last year.
Yeah, and it's amazing that how quickly the year has gone. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about today are what all transpired, what all kind of went into your thought process of buying a new home. But before we get started, we always enter our episode with a icebreaker question. So to kind of throw our guests off a little bit, kind of keep you on your toes.
All right, I'm ready.
You are Jacob. It'll be easy. It's a softball toss for you. You'll be able to stick it on the green, hole it out. Yep. Whatever golf analogy that we like to talk about all the time. That's one of our other things.
Both of us suck at golf, right. But we're gonna act like we know what we're doing.
Exactly. That could be another podcast. How we can help others with their golf game. Right?
Yeah. What not to do.
Well, okay, there you go. That's very true. But well, that could be another one. But for this one, my icebreaker question, or my question for you. So you bought a home first time a year ago. Yep. What was the first thing that you bought for your new home?
Oh gosh. I would say like living room furniture.
Okay.
Living room furniture, which my girlfriend had to help pick out because she wouldn't let me really decorate until she got to see the whole space.
As a good girlfriend would take over, right?
Good womanly touch.
Good women, yes. There you go. Right on.
Because if it was just for me, there would be futons and like loungers and an entertainment center and a TV, nothing on the walls, no end tables, maybe something to put a drink on, and that'd be it.
Right. Yeah. And gaming.
That's it.
Right on. So I know Jacob. He's very I would say polished. You know, he's when it comes to decor, when it comes to his shoe collection is spot on. We have a thing for we talk about things. We have things for shoes and hats and all that stuff. So Jacob's pretty spot on when it comes to that stuff.
We like nice things. Don't like the price point that always comes with it, but also that's where Scott come in handy when we're buying a new house.
Right. Yeah. So. Exactly. Right on. So I want to talk today about the process. And when people are calling me and hey, I'm starting to look and I'm starting the process, the questions are always, there's so many of them. It's like, from A to Z, what do I do? And then the anxiety, starts to creep in and all the things that go along with that. When you finally made, I think, that decision of, this is the time that I need to buy. What sort of things kind of went into your process thinking?
So it was a pretty long process. Me and my buddy were living together in an apartment for about a year and a half, 2 years. We had been in between an apartment and a townhouse. Both of us realized when we moved out of our apartment that we just didn't want to live that close to like people anymore. We're both in our mid-20s. We're like at that point, like out of the college scene, didn't love having everyone on top of us, hearing everybody. So we wanted kind of our own place. So going into a townhouse, it's just like, oh, this is really nice. And then he decides to move. And then I'm like, oh, okay. I don't have a ton of time. He told me he was going to move in January. Our lease was up in October, but he wasn't moving until about August. So we had a bit of time. Okay. And through that basically 8 months, it was basically me thinking, okay, do I rent another townhouse or do I decide to buy? And at that point, I'm 27 right now. At the time, I was just turned 26. Yeah, just turned 26. Okay. So I was in the process of like, okay, I don't have any outstanding debt. My credit's good. I don't have any car payments. So I essentially didn't have anything tying me down to keep me away from buying. So I thought it would be a good time to start looking around and seeing my options, and buying seemed like the best idea for me because honestly, renting at the end of the day, like, just I wasn't getting that much out of it. It was the same. It would have been the same thing as buying. like rent and leases are essentially almost the same thing.
Right.
The mortgages are almost the same thing.
Yep.
So it's like I might as well make my money work for me, where I can still maintain an asset and then build off of it and potentially make some money in the long haul.
Right.
So that's kind of where my overall thinking started.
Right. No, that's such a great point. So really, almost kind of being forced.
Yeah, not gonna lie, because before that I was just gonna rent. We were just gonna live together until basically one of us just decided that we wanted to do something
Right.
else, and
Yeah.
he wanted to get himself out of South Dakota, and now he's living in downtown Nashville, which is good for him. But
Right.
that kind of just made me kind of push my future a little bit more ahead of schedule than I anticipated, which is honestly a good thing because
Right.
it opened my eyes a little bit to other opportunities.
Right, for sure. And then when you were in the process of making, that decision, obviously as quickly as it was, you mentioned a lot of things in that answer of things that I would typically talk to, first time buyers about when they were asking, well, what do I need to do? And really that first thing, like you mentioned, is really knowing, what your debt was. You had an idea what my debt was, what sort of things that I was paying on, what my credit was or is. Do you think by really knowing that, did that really help?
It does, because I thought it took a lot of stress off of me. Like a lot of people my age really didn't have the opportunity to even have the chance to buy a new house, mainly because they either have outstanding car payments, a lot, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt, credit card bills, and I didn't have any of that.
Okay.
So it didn't bog me down as much seeing that big of a number when it came to like actually buying a house, thinking, oh, now that just adds on to these other things. Whereas I think a lot of people my age don't have that opportunity because they're just so set back in what they're already starting with. Like I thought I was very lucky going into college, where my parents had saved up enough where with my scholarships and being able to go out of college debt free, like I felt like I was a ways ahead of most people my age. And then having my car paid off by the time I was out of college and consistently getting my credit cards paid for just made my debt look really good. I got all my payments done ahead of time. So when it came to like going through you and honestly Chris being as helpful as he was, getting us figured out with like what the loans would look like, what the percentages was, and kind of looking at my overall line of credit and knowing that I didn't have any debt, like it helped a lot.
Right.
Knowing where my number was.
Okay, good. Because I think when that first time buyer, just knowing those type of things, it really can help. Like you mentioned, it's a stressful process to begin with, but to know kind of where you are sitting ahead of time before you get into it, I think really kind of relieves a little bit of that. My son and my daughter-in-law, I mean, literally they're first time home buyers, and they literally just signed paperwork on Monday for their first home.
Congratulations.
But yes, and it was amazing to me that I've done this for 26 years. My son, obviously knew that I did this, and my daughter-in-law, they've been together forever. They knew that this is what I did, but to actually hear still, those questions of, how does this process work? And so it's refreshing for me to know, okay, if they have these type of questions and he's my son, obviously there's going to be a lot of questions from others. So again, the reason why you're here is to help. I hope people will listen to this and really understand and say, gosh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So knowing credit, knowing how much money you have, down and what your credit score is I think very, very key. Now, when you went through that process, you worked with Chris over at First International Bank and Trust. Everybody, if you're not new to the podcast, Chris. Chris is almost like a de facto third host of our show, but he's at First International Bank and Trust, and he's a loan officer, and I think he does a great job as well. I think you could attest to that.
Oh yeah, Chris is the best. No, he couldn't have made the process any easier. Like he gave me every bit of information that I needed, plus any sort of documents that he needed from me. He kind of did almost all of the work when it came to like putting a lot of like my loan and what I needed to pay and everything that I needed for this to go as smoothly as possible. Like he made it just super simple.
Right. That's so great, and that's again one of the reasons why Chris is one of my referral partners that I use, because I know, especially when it comes to first time home buyers, he does a great job with that. And so going through that process now, when you were looking, when you finally decided, look, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to prove for, you give me a call and say, yep, I'm ready to go. What would you say to someone at least at that point? What were some things that you knew going into it, or what you were that you could expect? I mean, were there things that you were like, yeah, you know what, I kind of expected this?
I think the biggest thing was like knowing where your price point was. Like I expected, like, and you and I went through kind of a process of like having to adjust my price point, because originally I wanted something 250 or under, and it just wasn't realistic for kind of the expectation that I wanted out of a house.
Yep.
A lot of those houses were flippable houses. They were ones that people would probably look like they tried to do something, maybe ran out of funds and then had to sell it.
Right.
Or it was just an older house that hadn't been remodeled or improved within the last 20, 30 years.
Sure.
And it just wasn't honestly like what I was looking for. So then we had to take my price point and go all the way to we would have went over 300 on a house that I looked at
for
before.
sure. Yep.
So it was that was where I kind of started at, was just knowing where my price point was, because I knew kind of where my credit was, and knowing that I was the sole buyer of the house, that I wasn't getting a ton of help when it comes to like the amount of a loan that I could get, which a lot of people usually have somebody else to do it with it.
No, that's very true.
So what I was looking at is, okay, with the amount of credit that I have and the lack of debt that I have, okay, I can qualify for a decent loan, but I can't spring for a 350, a 325, which is where kind of closer where the market of like nice houses was. So instead, we kind of settled between like that 280 and 300 range, which did open our eyes a little bit more about like what we could find. Past that, like I was kind of expecting to find houses that were honestly a little bit newer. I didn't realize how many houses in Sioux Falls were like a little bit older that were still really well kept. And the bones of the houses were actually really good. I thought we went through like for the amount of houses that we went through, we probably went through what, like 10 houses?
I would say, yeah.
Probably around that, within only about a month and a half span. So I mean, we did it pretty quick.
Yeah, it was quick. Yes.
And that was, I know you always liked to pick houses that we would go to, whether or not we would even settle on it or not. It was just looking at like the different pieces of it that we could honestly like whittle down. Okay, I like this, I like this, I like this, and then find something that like commingled and intertwined all of those things. And we went to a couple houses that I think both of us knew before we even went there that we weren't going to like the house, but we liked a couple different dimensions of it.
Yeah.
And that was something that I think a lot of people, especially when they're buying a house, don't look into a lot is, okay, I want to find my perfect house. Well, more than likely, there's going to always be something that you want to change or improve. So I liked the fact that like when we went through that, I had expectations of wanting to find that perfect house. And you were more from the aspect of, let's go see all these houses and see what you like, and then see if we can find the best match for you, and not exactly the most perfect thing in the world.
Yep. I think it's a great point. I love the fact that you were so open at, you know what, like you said, you mentioned your price point. We looked at those that were in that price point. We kind of reconvened, got a different game plan. But again, going back to understanding where you were, you know, financially, you know, what you were comfortable with, what we had talked about, but then also just knowing that, you know what, I looked at these houses here and I know what I don't like because based on what we saw, but I also know what I do like, and being open to seeing those different options, I think was what was, I think, a lot of fun for me in that whole process. We got to see a lot of homes. The one, God, we can go and talk about the one that got away.
that was nice. There was 5 bedrooms in that. The yard
my goodness!
Was huge. And we were close. I mean, we were probably second in line.
We were.
We also decided that we couldn't overspend at the same time. Because didn't want to put myself behind the 8 ball in terms of like what you always put was being house poor. Essentially, was basically overspending to buy the house that you really wanted. But then realistically, you're probably spending more out of your income than what you needed, which then doesn't allow you to do anything else or make, honestly, any faults at all. Like if you couldn't make a payment on something, you didn't want me to essentially be screwed and be in a place that I couldn't catch back up. So we kind of found the most realistic standpoint from like a long-term perspective.
And I love when we did find that house. And I tell people this all the time, even with my son and daughter-in-law. And I do this with all my first time home buyers too. You know, they hone in on a house, and gosh, this is the one I want. You know, we end up putting an offer in, and or we didn't even get a chance to because the house had sold, and it was just that deflated. You know, gosh, I didn't get this house. I really wanted this one, and just so disappointed. Now I'm getting discouraged. And it's understanding that the process is that's not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, I've done, you know, I've been around here a long time, done it for 26 years, and it has never failed me yet where there was a right house for someone. So going and finally finding that one that we landed on was it was an awesome home.
Yeah, it was the best case scenario for what I needed, and I kind of went back and forth from a lot of perspectives of like you said, you get demoralized if it's almost like applying for a job that you really wanted and you're not getting. You're like, oh, that would have been perfect. It would have gone really well. I could see myself in it for a few years, and then once you get told that something else gets accepted before yours, and you're just absolutely down in the dumps, you almost mentally moved yourself in already.
Right? Yeah.
Just
yeah,
like I would put this here, and then you almost have to reset. Like
Right.
I think we didn't look at a house again for probably another week after that.
Right,
and then I think that next one that we looked at was the one that we set.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Now, okay, so going back and being, you know, you talk about being deflated. You talk about, gosh, you know, you put so much energy into that process. You find the one, it doesn't go right. What advice would you give that first time home buyer that goes through that situation? How to kind of reset their mind when it comes to that?
Kind of just controlling whatever you can control, honestly. Like you can control the offer that you have, and you can counter offer with the seller and everything if that's the house that you're wanting. But if you get outbid and you're not willing to go above your kind of decided price, like you really can't do that much about it. And it sucks at the time being because you quite literally thought that was going to be your home, and now you're kind of set back and you're like, okay, I don't know if I can find one. So the advice that I would usually give people at that point is just like kind of sit in it. You can sulk in it for a little bit, but then you kind of have to move on because that house isn't coming back. It's almost it's rejection at the end of the day. It's like you break up with a girlfriend that you've had for a while, and you're just like, oh, now I get it. No, this is gonna suck for a little bit, and it's not gonna feel very good. But eventually, there's gonna be another one.
Right, exactly.
And eventually, you're gonna find the one that's right for you, and you just keep on going because you can't control what you can't control.
Exactly, and we found that one, and we write the contract, gets accepted. Now the process kind of goes from another gear. You know, it goes from, okay, we're looking, you know, we found it. What sort of things when we're going through paperwork, we're going through the purchase agreement, were there any preconceived notions that you had when it came to, you know, now this particular process of putting an offer in? Was there anything that you were like, oh yeah, I understand, you know, I got that, or was there something that you were in, oh crap, I wish I would have known that?
Not really. I thought you guys made it about as simple as possible. I knew that there was some added expenses that would always come with it, and the long extended paperwork that we had to go through, and looking over, honestly, that 30-year mortgage is never fun. I'm not gonna lie. Reading the papers,
the total cost at the end of the third.
when we were signing the papers with Chris, and because we bought that house for $287,500,
right?
So I had a decent amount down. That we were looking at it, and I'm just like, okay, 265, that's not that bad. We go through all this 30 years, okay, not terrible. And then we flipped to like the last 3 pages, and Chris just goes, okay, if you don't make any additional payments and you just go off this interest, this number is actually what you're going to end up paying. And my heart just sunk. And it was just, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to flip that page back over.
Right, we're not going to look at that one. That one we kind of throw out really quick because it is a number that is, you look at it and you go, what? It's like double? No.
Oh, it went from I can't remember the exact number, but it was like a $265,000 loan, and I think I would have ended up paying like $480 or something over 30 years, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Okay, yes. Refinance.
Keep looking at the interest rates.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we got that. Now, when you put the offer, so we did the offer. Was there anything that other than that, you know, was anything else that you could say that surprised you, or that you would say, hey, when you're buying a home, when you're doing, your purchase, be cognizant of this. What would you say that you really would need to make sure that you're looking at?
I think when it comes to like actually the house in general and not necessarily signing the papers, like just making sure that your inspection is done as thoroughly as possible. Like the house that I bought was built in the early 60s. So when you think about it, okay, that house is 60 something years old, and a good chunk of those houses at this point don't have a ton of upgrades in terms of like the structure of it or the original appliances. So when I had the inspector come in, he had looked through everything. And he's like, yep, the bones of it look good. The structure's good. There's no leakage. There's nothing that's under essentially the house's Carfax at the end of the day, just looking at it if there was any previous damage. He's like, okay, all this looks good. The only thing that I would be aware of is that, okay, your furnace and your AC are very old. They're like 20-something years old. And they're like, most people at this point, if they have any issues with it, you're probably just going to have to get it replaced because they're so old that a lot of places just don't service them anymore. And to me, I was just like, okay, I got to do the math on that. It's just like, what's the probability of that going on? And they had run a lot of tests on them and seen that, okay, they haven't had any problems with it. The house has withstanded really well, and it shouldn't really be an issue unless something drastic happens. Okay. So that at the end of the day was something that I really looked into, as well as like any immediate maintenance that I would have to do. So I think that's a lot of things that people don't necessarily look at is like, okay, yes, you're living in the house, but the whole plot of land is something that I feel like you have to look at too. Right. Like my whole thing was 2-stall garage, 3 bedrooms so that we had enough space. And then also that fenced-in garage or fenced-in yard because I was planning on getting a dog and now I do have one. And having that was super key. And a lot of the houses that we looked at didn't have that. But you were like, okay, you have this, but you don't have this. You have this and you don't have this. And I feel like people trying to find that perfect house can be super picky, but also they're kind of like your non-negotiables that you kind of have to kind of juggle with yourself a little bit, which then that ultimately made me raise my price a little bit because if I wanted what I actually wanted, I had to kind of let a little bit of ego aside and just be like, okay, I can't necessarily stick with this initial price. You're not going to get what you want. And I kind of had to bite the bullet, realize I was going to spend a little bit more, and I was okay with that. And I feel like that's a lot of times a threshold that new buyers have to go through is like, am I willing to spend this much on this house? And if you're looking at it from a long-term perspective, if you're going to use all this space, and I tell my girlfriend this a lot, we're going to use this space, let's use it efficiently. And if you're going to use it, and you're going to use it long term, whether or not it's for a pet, use it for kids, use it for like entertaining, having people around, making sure you're using the whole space, like that's really what I feel like you have to look at long term. And I feel like a lot of people just looked at the number and looked at the physical house, but don't look at the whole grand scheme of things before they sign the papers and what they actually have to do in the immediate future. Right.
Yeah, that's such great. And I love the fact that you really focused on the inspection. I think I tell people all the time, I will never, ever, ever advocate somebody to not go without going with an inspection, even on, in circumstances, new construction. I think inspections are extremely important. And, we went through a time in 2020, right around there. I mean, prices and the competition. I mean, there were homes that were getting, for example, the one that you ended up buying, if that would have been 2020, there's a good probability that there would have been 6 or 7 different offers on that house, and that would have went for $30,000-$40,000 over asking price. And one of the offers, and maybe the offer that got accepted was one that did not have an inspection. They just said, we want this house and we're not going to do an inspection. I don't care if you are in a competing situation. I would never, ever advocate going against an inspection. So I'm glad that you really focused on that. You took heed into that inspection. And the other thing too that you mentioned that I love is you were looking when inspection comes in, you wanted that inspector to really look at the structure, the bone, the things that really mattered. And we're not really dealing a whole lot with, cosmetic stuff, the things that really didn't, that weren't that big of a deal.
You can change that on your own.
Exactly. But on just, the bigger things, the AC, the furnace, a roof, foundation, electrical, those type of things are what are things that we really need to look for, rather than, okay, well, I want this fixed, this fixed, this fixed, and I've got a 2-page addendum that goes from having a new furnace down to having a outlet cover replaced. There's understanding what's important, because it's not a new house. There's going to be things that like you mentioned, it's 40 years old or however old it was. There's going to be things that are going to need to be done. So pointing that out, I think is really huge for people who are looking at buying that first home. So that's awesome. I love that. Also within is there anything else in that process that you would love that a first-time buyer know that, hey, you know what, I really want you to understand this?
I think that the process for most people is probably longer than mine.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that a lot of people have to be aware of too. I think we moved really quickly because we almost had to.
Right.
We had to deal with that. One, having the South Dakota first-time home buyers was huge because that took a good chunk off of the initial buying price.
And we were in that grants for grads that was up at a certain time. Yeah. That was wild.
We started looking in, I think, February. February-ish, and we really didn't start heavily looking until like middle to end of March, because the Grants for Grads program had almost ran out of money. There were so many people within South Dakota that had used it up that it was almost ran dry.
Right.
And we were let known that we either had to use it or we lost it by the end of April. April 30th was the last day that we could have used it, and we signed the papers on April 29th.
Yep.
So we were able to get, I think it was $10,000. And I mean, it's not a small amount of money.
Right.
So we acted really quickly. And I think a lot of people probably wouldn't recommend doing that, but having both you and Chris be able to take hold of that and honestly like work your magic and try and be as efficient as you could helped the process move really smoothly. And I think a lot of people have to have kind of the opposite perspective of it might take a little bit longer than you expect.
Right.
Like houses right now, especially in the market, are not like super like cost friendly when it comes to what a lot of first time home buyers are looking for. So the process might be a little bit slower. Like I just got lucky from the fact point that there was 2 houses that we were looking at that were within a similar price range of mine. The other one ended up being way higher than what I want to. And then this one went on the market, and then we got it bought in a week. Right. It was literally, I think, 5 to 7 days after it was listed that we bought it. So we just kind of got lucky with the draw. And I think a lot of people have to be aware that that's more than likely not going to be the case. So being discouraged happens when it comes to a house that you wanted, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And then the next one comes up, oh, I liked it, but I don't like it that much, so I don't. So then I pass on that one. And it could take months upon months of getting all this done. Like we signed the paper on April 29th, and by July 29th we had it officially bought because I pushed that endpoint out to 90 days. So it happened very quickly, and I think a lot of people have to think about it from a bigger kind of open, broader perspective that it might take 5-6 months plus just to get the perfect house that you're looking for actually decided on, not even paper signed.
Yeah, no, that's true. It is a process. And I love having a perspective of someone in that first time buyer realm, and just so you could speak to that. I've done this for a long time, and one of the things that still gets me, and what I love about my job, the thing that I love the most about my job is probably working with that first time buyer. And I love the newness. I love the excitement. I love the questions. I love the anxiety. I love, that just walking them through that process. So I appreciate you coming in and really kind of giving, your perspective on that. So anything else that you'd like to say? Or
I have one more bit of advice, especially since you have a camera that's pointed straight at me. So I'm going to look into it so that I can get get that one point
exactly
in,
right on.
Is that for those people that are trying to make rash decisions, have a little bit more patience. I would say that, because there's a lot of people that will jump at a new house that fits their price point that they think that they want, but they don't do their full due diligence, and then they end up regretting it. And then you're in it. You have a 30-year mortgage. You have something that is on you, and you can't just give it away. So having that ability to honestly, like I said before, put your pride aside, let yourself have a little bit of grace and have a little bit of patience when it comes to like making the absolute right decision is more important than making that quick, like really honestly sexy decision that looks really nice, that in the long run, bites you in the butt that you're regretting 5-10 years down the line.
Right. Yeah. You couldn't have said it any better. So we're going to end on that note. If you want to check out some other episodes, make sure you go on our YouTube channel, subscribe, rate, review, check out our Facebook, Instagram. Jaden will be working on some of that as we get along here. And I'm so happy that Jacob was here with us today. One of the things that we always do when we end is we always end in a word of prayer. So I'm going to go ahead and pray for us. Jacob is going to be doing some fun new things coming up, talking about buying a first home here in Sioux Falls. His job is taking him in a new direction.
Yeah.
So you're going up to Grand Forks, North Dakota, and you're going to be the assistant men's and women's track and cross country coach.
Yep, at the University of Minnesota Crookston. So about 25 miles east of Grand Forks. So little small town with a D2 program that's on the come up really quickly, and I couldn't be more excited for the opportunity.
That is so great. And if you want to check out Jacob has a podcast of his own. It's geared toward fitness. It's geared toward, I would imagine, some nutrition things, just overall health. Give some information about that, because I think people would really love to get to subscribe to that.
For sure. So my friend Max and I graduated from Brandon with me. We've been running this podcast for almost 2 years now. We're about to hit 2 years in this upcoming summer in June. Called the Capable Climb Podcast. We started it because we wanted to be kind of an outlet for people that weren't necessarily super heavy gym heads, weren't also the biggest marathon runners in the world, kind of that in between of just there's people that want to get in shape, want to improve their health, want to improve their mental health, and also want to use exercise and fitness in their bodies for positive outcome, essentially, at the end of the day. So we go through different perspectives of teaching people the right way to run, the right running shoes, the right way to approach the gym if it's your first time there, the ways that mental health and the way that you exercise or just even move your body can help you in your daily life. And we add in some nutrition things as well for those that want a little bit of perspective when it comes to hydration and fueling, just to make sure that you feel your best. So we try and help people as much as possible. My buddy Max is a great personal trainer, and he has inspired me a lot to do and want to do more in this space. So we try and post every couple weeks on Fridays and try and push out new topics with a bunch of different guests. So we're really excited about where it's going and kind of what business it can bring to us as well.
That's awesome. And that's called the Capable Climb. We'll have a link to that on our in our comment section. It's funny because Jacob was a first-time home buyer, and now he gets to help people who are maybe looking at getting into fitness and things like that for the first time. So you're able to help those first-time health and fitness people. So check Jacob out. Check out the Capable Climb. That you'll be glad that you did. Subscribe, rate, review to that one. So I'm gonna end in prayer. So go ahead and pray with me. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity that we have today. I love Jacob so much to death, and he is just a inspiration not only to first-time home buyers, but to me as well, and all the things that he does. So I appreciate his time today and talking about the essentials and the process of buying that first home and being able to hopefully relieve some of those stress and anxiousness in the process. And God, I thank you for this platform, this opportunity that we get to talk about the things that are important in our lives. And we hope that you, Father God, are at the top of that list. And again, thank you. We love you for each and every opportunity. In your name I pray. Amen. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.